Okay, so I was deemed gifted academically in kindergarten and was put in gifted classes up until that point, right? And now looking back on it, I have been thinking about this for days now that they perceived this giftedness as intelligence, and they saw it in a form of being very intelligent, highly intelligent. But what they missed and did not realize is that high intelligence, that giftedness, was selective. Okay. That didn't mean I was all around academically gifted. My giftedness will only showcase and come out when I am interested in that said thing or subject. Then I am gifted in it, because what is this giftedness? It's the ability to hyperfixate on something, which makes you extremely smart or intelligent in that particular area or the thing that you're interested in. So in certain subjects that I was interested in, I hyperfixated on them, hyper focused, became like obsessed with them, grew this obsession and really studied it and became good at it. And it has to be that hyperfixation will only come on when the thing is interesting. When it's interesting, it gives me a challenge. It makes me really, really think, And so I become extremely interested in it. And then I become intelligent in that area. And so when you label somebody gifted, and so you put them to that standard for every subject, well, guess what? I didn't have an interest in every subject. My interests, my hyperfixations were reading and writing. Obsessed, loved it. So I became very good at reading and very good at writing, right? And in math, particular subjects that I was interested in, I liked. But when I did not like it, I did not do good in that subject. Science, I did not have a particular interest in science. Social studies, there were little pockets, little certain details of those subjects that I liked. And so then I listened and were interested in and could remember those particular facts. Other ones that I had disinterest in, it was hard for me to remember those facts and retain that information. Why? Because I simply was not interested in it. Therefore, the hyperfixation is not clicking, it's not turning on, the dopamine is not going to those areas. Therefore, I'm not doing good in them. And you have this expectation for me to, because you've seen that in this particular subject, gifted, which was just a hyperfixation that you didn't understand. But I did. I was interested in it. Therefore, you see gifted abilities. Something I'm not interested in, or you can't make interesting for me, you're not going to get the hyperfixation. Therefore, you're not going to get the giftedness. Therefore, you aren't going to get the A's and B's in those subjects. You're going to get the C's. You're going to get the C's. And it's like, oh, we know you can do better. Yeah, I could if I was interested in it. But guess what? I'm not. So you're pushing it. You're pushing it. And you're pissing me off. Interested here. Reading, writing, music, sports, all those things. Excelling, skyrocketing. Gifted abilities, okay? Sports, I was put on varsity as a freshman, okay? In volleyball and in track. Why? Because I had a hyperfixation, because I was really interested in them. Running fast, loved it. My body loved it. It was like my body's actually keeping up with my mind. It's running at a fast pace. That's how my mind is working. So I loved track because of that. I loved the competitiveness, it kept me very interested. Therefore, I gave it, in a sense, my all, right? Until my body physically couldn't keep up with that shit because my coach was crazy. Okay, I couldn't. But, okay. And then, so having that label was it put a lot of pressure. Okay. And in the subjects that I was not gifted in, right, I had to mask that so much because that's what they expected. They expected because I was gifted in reading that I should be gifted in math, or because I showed some signs of being gifted in math in particular subjects, in particular pockets of math, algebra or this or that, then that means all around I should have this ability to perform at this gifted level for everything. And if I don't, then I'm a failure. If I don't, then something's wrong. Why can't you perform and do this, what you're doing in these subjects here in life? Because I'm not interested. You're trying to put me in a box that I just simply do not belong in. And let's be real here, a lot of jobs are not interesting. Like, yes, I can get maybe the high of when you first start and the challenge of starting, and then but after that, it becomes very routine, very basic, very dull, not demure, not cutesy, okay? And it's like my brain becomes bored, therefore I don't want to do the task. And I don't want to do the task at 100% because it's boring. It's dull, and my brain it's jazzy up here all the time, all the time, all the time, all the time. Or at least you better be doing something to try to make this job interesting, this position interesting to me. I need some type of stimulation because my brain is, okay, it's a whole galaxy, bruh. I'm containing a whole universe within this body. And this little thing here just can't keep up. Anyways, my point is, I don't know what my point was, but basically it was realizing that when they labeled me gifted, and how I was masking in the areas that I was not gifted in, and how hard that was to do that. Like in math, they put me in that a math challenge game or whatever, that game 24, where you have to get to the sum of 24 with on the cards by either adding, multiplying, subtract, and get 24. But I like that it was so challenging. But the thing is that my brain is moving so fast that it can't remember those numbers. It can't retain numbers visually. So doing mental math was very hard for me. Very hard for me. And I don't know if my teachers knew it or not, because I was counting under the desk with my fingers, because I'm expected to know mental math. I'm expected to remember these numbers. Other kids are remembering these numbers. I should be able to remember these numbers. But you have me think of the number 5 plus whatever, 13, and I'm seeing the 5 and the 3, and then you're trying to have me carry it, but then I'm focused on this, and then that number's left my mind already. So then it can't retain it, especially if it's a lot of steps of having to do mental math. I'm losing the numbers in my brain. And so for me, during those things, I'm still counting on my fingers, because I know that when I try to do it mentally in my mind and visualize it and try to do it, I can't. I'm focusing on one number and then the other number disappears. I'm like, dang, what number was this again? Was this a 5 or 3? So... But I'm supposed to be gifted in that. And I'm supposed to know how to do mental math. And I'm supposed to, that was my thing with remembering. Remembering was so hard, retaining. And this was in childhood. Okay. Childhood. I remember that acting was something I loved. I loved to act, right? But I never went for acting. I think I went one time and went for a role. It might have been twice, actually. And I remember getting the part. But then I remember the fact that I can't remember lines. I can't remember the lines. You would practice and practice and practice, then you'd get it. And then it's like that moment comes and you forget. and you can't remember the lines, and it's hard for you to memorize things. Like even with learning a song, you know how many times I have to listen to that song to remember that particular line, and then when I do remember that line, now I'm forgetting another line. So realizing that all these little things that I knew but had to mask, and nobody really picked up on it, to say that this is what it is, which is having ADHD. But what that is just being different. Your brain has a different way of processing and doing things, whether they want to call it an attention deficiency, when it's really not an attention deficiency. It's just we're only going to give to things we want to give to. And you can't force us. We just don't have that ability to give to, or we refuse to, you know. And so, but this society is not built for people who are a little bit different, who think differently, who process differently. They want to force us to process the same way that they do. And when we can't, we are deemed failures. We are deemed lazy. We are deemed all these, the undesirables, you know, because they don't want to have a world where, you know, we can thrive as well in our existence, our natural existence of who we are and our essence and our being. But when we are given that, even by ourselves, or very rarely by others around us, we thrive. And you really get to see our superpowers for what they really are, because they are there. They're just not there for everything. They're selective. Okay, we have our abilities, but they're in particular areas, and that just is what it is, and that's okay. And it's just very healing now that I have this realization of it, and I'm coming to this acceptance of it, so that I don't have to go around feeling like shit, feeling like I don't belong, feeling like this or that, feeling depressed that I can't operate and do things at the same levels as others. But then they also can't operate and do things at the levels that I do in particular areas. Everyone has their strengths and their weaknesses. And if the world just embraced all, that would be great. You know, prior to us being colonized, our cultures, our communities had spaces and held spaces for us gifted people, right? We were able to coexist. They made the accommodations for us so that we just lived freely as ourselves and contributed to our societies in the way that we had interest in doing. And they saw this particular interest in this particular area, and so they created a space for us around those particular interests and areas, and we thrived. So yeah, society's got to do better. And that starts with society decolonizing their mind. No matter what race or ethnicity you are, you need to decolonize from this current system that we in, the systematic racist system that we're in, the everything, especially with mental health, neurodivergency, academics, just rewiring the brain completely. It's what every person needs to do for themselves and their descendants, for their communities, for their well-being. And every capitalism holds no space for neurodivergent people. To a capitalistic society, we're undesirable. We're misfits. We don't contribute enough because we actually honor ourselves and take those breaks and, go slow and take our time and give ourselves the space and time to venture and experiment and be creative and do the things that we want to do and have hobbies and just allow our minds to be what they are and go where they go, as brilliant as they are. But the world, the capitalistic world, the white patriarch capitalistic world that we live in does not like that. And there's that.